So hello and welcome to another Freedom Frequencies video on the old YouTube. And today, really happy to have, I know you as Vic, but you are Victoria Westwood, hypnotherapist.
I am Victoria.
Victoria, that's such a great name.
Thanks. I don't dislike it.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous. So Vic, we met a couple of weeks ago at what I'm going to call was a Wise Woman Circle. That kind of happened organically, wasn't it? It was going to be one event and it turned into something else, and it was so amazing. And you inspired me. You just brought all this curiosity about in me because you're I can tell you've done a lot of work on yourself by how you talk, but you have a lot of humor as well, and I love that. I especially love when people have got humor around their story and everything. It helps a lot. But I don't, you know, we spoke about the things we spoke about that day. I don't know too much about you. So I'd like to ask you about you're a hypnotherapist, and you got into hypnotherapy through a journey, and that's what I would like to, what I'm wanting to bring forward in this channel is people's journey. You know, we get somewhere and we turn into something, but there was a journey that took us there. And that, I think, is the bit that helps people understand that they can do it too. You know, it wasn't all I turned up and I've got life mastered and I can laugh about stuff, because you can't laugh about stuff all the time, can you? There's times when you know, life's not fun at all. So would you like to tell us about your journey into hypnotherapy?
Yeah, of course. I can start briefly right at the very beginning of how it came even into my awareness. I was looking for a last minute, because I'm super disorganized, a last minute birthday gift for a friend, and decided to see if I could book in for some reflexology and a bit of a treat day for us. So we found a therapist, Alison Reed. She's in Redfield in Bristol. She's amazing. And she was offering Reiki, Indian head massage, and a reflexology package. So we went for a treat day. It was fantastic. Gathered a couple of leaflets of the other things that she did while we were there. It was Hopi candling and various other different therapies and hypnotherapy. And that was about as far as it went. There was no, you know, nothing else. Life carried on. My friend at the time then went through a really difficult breakup and ended up coming and living with me. And she was going through such a difficult time. And we didn't really know what else to do. And I think I would go in through a coat pocket, go in through a bag as you do, pulled out this leaflet for hypnotherapy and said to her, look, why don't you go and give this a go? And she did. And she came back home, walked through the door and told me in a way of complete knowing and truth, everything I'd spent nearly every day saying to her on repeat for about 6 months, that hadn't gone in and hadn't taken effect and hadn't been able to be heard. And yet she came through the door telling me everything I'd been telling her as though it was brand new information and as though a huge internal shift had happened. And at that point I thought, oh my goodness, that's the job for me. That's what I want to do, because I've always been, my background was in bar work and bar management. That's what I used to do. But my role in life has always been the helper, the advisor. My friends would always come to me. I've always had that level head, that capacity to problem solve perhaps, and had always been interested in a career in talk therapy, potentially counselling. But I always found it wasn't proactive enough for me to have someone come, tell me their problems and go away without solutions. I needed something more than that. And watching her come back with this complete shift, it was like a light bulb moment of cha-ching, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I probably did absolutely nothing with that information for a good few years. Thought about doing something in hypno and didn't. Busy young family, you know, life just going on. Shelved it really, didn't really give it much more attention. Until a little while later, I started experiencing some family difficulties, emotional, a lot of anxiety, a lot of trapped emotion, and was holding a lot in. And it came to one day that I was walking home on the school run and had what is a full-blown panic attack. And so then I went and had some hypnotherapy. And it was significant, life-changing, and really quick in the way it shifted my feelings, in the way I was able to move away from that anxiety to feel more confident and more positive. And it really made a big impact. And once again, I thought, this is something that I need to do. And I did nothing with that because, again, I'm a huge procrastinator and had a really busy life, and probably a lack of confidence surrounding as well. I then used it to trying to work out which way round it was. I think with my third child, I had a water birth, really good, easy, successful birth. With my fourth, I decided to try hypnobirthing because it had been so successful with other things, and I knew it was something that she offered. So I did a course in that. And again, the difference was significant, really significant, noticeable not only to me whilst birthing, but to the midwives, to everybody else there. I can always remember listening to, having had 3 children before, I can always remember listening to the recording where she says, with each contraction, you'll feel more relaxed. And I think, you're good, love, but you're not that good. just simply no way you feel relaxed with a contraction. And I think I'd interpreted the word relaxed with the thought of a lack of pain, which actually are not the same thing at all. There was most definitely still pain. A human being is coming out of my body, but it was secondary. It was manageable. It was something that was happening within the birth experience, but not the birth experience. And I felt deeply grounded, deeply in control, and more relaxed with each contraction, to a point that I think I must have led in that birthing pool looking like I was at a spa day, not that I was in labour. I was so in control. And it got to, I can remember looking at the time and saying to her, what position will be the quickest? And she said, you're delivering beautifully. What, you know, you don't need to speed it up. And I said, if I get this baby out by 12, you'll let me go home today, won't you? And she said, yeah. And we said, let's do it. And we did it. And I was back home by 9 o'clock that night on the sofa. Everything was calm, peaceful, and easy. And again, huge awakening moment, because I had something to compare it to as well. 2 normal dry land births, as I refer to them, 1 birth pool, which was much easier, but this, which was something altogether different. And I still did nothing with this because I've got a newborn at this point, 3 children and a newborn. I'm not retraining my career. And I then used it again to get over a driving phobia. I could not get into a car. As soon as I felt the car come into my hands, I would let go and get out. I'm terrified. And I had several sessions for that, passed my test first time, no problem at all. I think after that point, a friend of mine actually got one of my filled out application forms for the hypnotherapy course at the Clifton Practice in Bristol. It's well renowned. And I filled the form in, I got that far, but I can't guarantee that that still wouldn't be in a bottom of a drawer somewhere now if my friend hadn't posted it for me, which they did. And I was accepted onto the course, and it completely changed my life. If I'd have never made it my career and never made it how I make my money, it still would have been worth every minute of everything I learned for myself, for my family, and for anybody else I've ever been able to share some of what I learned with. It works. Why I love it is because it works so quickly. It's so quick and it's so easy, which is what I love about it. It can be used in so many different ways because of how quick and easy it is, how painless it is compared to some other therapies as well.
Yeah, because like the talking therapies, it's almost like, well, it just keeps you, it can keep you trapped, can't it, in a loop of revisiting things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was actually gifted a hypnotherapy session from my son when he was around 18, bless him, 17, 18. He was old enough to be earning. And I had a breakdown at that time, and he went into the local chiropractors in the village where we lived and said, what can we get for my mum? She's had a breakdown, bless him, that he had to do that. But he came back with this hypnotherapy session, and It did. It took they described this button that was in my mind, and all about the anxiety and how I was keeping my hand on this panic, and that's the whole fight and flight thing, and I was just constantly in a state of panic. So yeah, it did change my life. And when you were talking about the conversations that you'd had, like when your friend, when she came back, I was doing that to the people around me at that time, just like, I can't believe what happened, and I was buying hypnotherapy sessions for everybody here, trying to get this. So yeah, it is amazing. So who are your clients? What do you mostly work with?
I've got all sorts of different things, mainly stress, anxiety. My favorite thing to do, if I've got a favorite thing to do, is to work with teenagers experienced in school phobia and school-based anxiety. I've experienced it with my own children who struggled with fitting in with school and had school phobia, and I find it really upsetting to see how much they struggle and the way that they're dealt with within the system that's there to help them. So I try to be an outside force to try and navigate those things. It works so fast with teenagers because they're still more in touch with their imaginative and creative side of their brain, which I think helps the process. But yeah, I do some phobia for just, you know, flying and things like that, smoking, weight loss, healthy eating, shadow work. I touch on some more spiritual stuff, past life regression, getting in touch with your higher self. I've not come across yet somebody that's asked me for help with something that I've not been able to apply hypnotherapy to. And I think that's another thing that makes it so beautiful. I've never been able to say, sorry, I can't help you with this, because there's always, you can at least always take the edge off of an issue while you then find another way to tackle whatever it is. But yeah, I think working with the school phobia and anxious teens is probably
I mean, and needed now more than ever, I imagine. Just what kids have been going through this past 2 years is just what everybody's been going through, but in particular the kids and the schooling, and you're in school, you're out of school, you've got to learn on your own and all that. You're a single parent now. How have you coped with that?
Mine are home educated anyway. We choose with my youngest to home educate, so we're unaffected by what's going on out there.
Oh, brilliant. So was that before this happened? You was home educating anyway?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. They struggled, all of them besides one have struggled within the school system to larger or lesser degrees, and it got to the point where I was watching my son in particular at that time walk out of school with his head bowed, and it was enough. We couldn't fit that system anymore. We couldn't do it for our family anymore. The lack of flexibility, the control, the way that the system is now is difficult. And so I hope for those that have no choice but to remain in it, to make it as easy as I can for them. So it's always the same thing as everything else, is if you can't change the situation, the only thing you can change is your mindset around the situation. So I try and help people as much as I can.
Yeah,
to navigate that, but for us, the system don't fit.
Yeah, and it is for a lot of kids as well, isn't it? I mean, there's those kids that are naturally academic and they like it, they love going to school, and then there's the kids that fidget, you know, they're just not wired up to learn the same way. Literally, no. That's it, isn't it? It's more creative or just more hands-on, just something. And it's a whole classroom of kids, and expecting them to be able to all behave and do the same is a bit bonkers anyway, really. Well, yeah. Oh, respect to you for homeschooling. I think there's more and more people homeschooling as well now, isn't there, as a result of
yeah, it's increasing hugely. I think a lot of people, for several different reasons, I think a lot of people notice that their children actually work more effectively in the peace and quiet of their own homes without the distraction and whatever else. I think a lot of people realized that they were going to work to provide a lifestyle that if they weren't at work, they didn't need to do that. So if you've got the time to be at home, educating your children, cooking home cooked dinners, not having to pay for childcare and after school clubs and everything else, you realize that that wage that was, you know, was going on those things that are no longer important to you. I think a lot of people find more of a connection within their home and family and the way that they did things over being locked away. And I think people are, you know, changing the way that they see things because of it.
So do you have like a hub of people for homeschooling, or I don't know much about it. I know I do know there's different ways of doing it.
Yeah, there's lots of different groups. You can network quite a lot through different Facebook groups and get in touch with other people that are doing stuff in your area. A lot of the like outdoor socializing activities and things like that obviously were massively affected by the pandemic. We're quite lucky because we live with my, you know, my children are range from 22 to 12, and so it's not just me in charge of all of the education. They, you know, she can go and sit and learn with her brothers and sisters and stuff, so everybody's bringing something different. And we do an online tutor now. It's moved to online that she has to just do some of the academic stuff, but it's child-led. She learns what she wants to learn, what she's interested in.
No, I know I've got friends that are, one friend that's already taken her child out of education at the end of the last year, and others that are wanting to find a way and work out how they can do it. So reassuring to others out there. So my husband has a phobia of buttons. Have you ever come across a phobia of buttons before?
Yeah, I think I've done a case study on buttons. I don't think if I've actually had buttons myself, but it's not an uncommon
I just don't understand. Like, I can understand where a fear of even a car may come from. You know, it moves, it's big, it's powerful. A spider, they've got all those legs, and flying, you're in the, you know, there's things that you can kind of rationalize having a fear over. But the button thing, what was your case study about buttons? I'm going to
remember it was a long time ago, but this is interesting to understand how a phobia is created and how easy a phobia could be created. So in terms of being frightened of a button, there could have been very easily an incident as a small child where he put a button in his mouth or went to put a button in his mouth, and panic ensued because mum, dad, carer, whoever picks him up, grabs him, shouts, screams, he's got a button in his mouth, wrenches his mouth open, pulls the button out, don't you put buttons in your mouth, tidies them all away. That's a phobia.
Yeah.
Douche, there it is, because the body's engaged fight or flight and panic as a response, because there's been panic, and the last visible contact would have been a button, the last visual would have been that. See, the brain will template match. Buttons and panic go together, so you'll see a button and it will remind you of panic, because the brain always refers to previous patterns of behavior for your survival. So if you've ever been in a situation, or even someone reminding you, don't put that in your mouth, don't put that in your mouth, don't put that in your mouth, dangerous, scary, no, if that was even repeated enough, that is just enough to create a neural pathway, a connection there for a phobia to be created that easily.
Right. Yeah. I say phobia, maybe that's not the right word for him, just thinking about how you were describing that, because he's repulsed by them. It's as if they're the most disgusting thing on the planet. Like duvets, you've got to do your buttons up, haven't you? And he'll be like, if he has to do that, he literally can't look. Or somebody on the telly who's got their outfits on and they've got buttons on it, he's like...
That's interesting. I don't know if again I would hazard a guess. There may have been dirty, no, about buttons. Whatever that would be, they were picked up off the floor and were told they were or licked on a cardigan and told, I don't know, but that is an interesting one to not be phobic as such, but to be about buttons.
And the more holes they have, the more disgusting they are.
There is something as well. There is a phobia. I don't know what the name of that one is, but it is a phobia of holes in things as well. So it could be a combination of the two.
Anyway, he's an interesting being himself, but I just find it hilarious, and it's great. So
It's a strange one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ruining his life. He's fine. He just wears hoodies and t-shirts and avoids buttons.
Perfect solution. Definitely don't need therapy, just need a hoodie. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. Yeah. So, do you do regression work as well?
I
Or is that
do
different?
some work. It's not something that I advertise actually. I've tended in the past to keep my more spiritual practices more personal, so as not to put off people that don't believe in those sorts of things from what hypnotherapy can do. And I think quite often somebody who isn't in touch with more spiritual side of things or doesn't believe in those things would be put off and would think it was wishy-washy, airy-fairy, fluffy quackery, rather than being able to experience the fact that it is life-changing and it's based in, you know, it can be scientifically proved as to why. So I tend not to advertise that as much, but if people request it, then yeah, then I do it.
Yeah, it's all part of the same skill set that you've got in taking people in
Yeah,
whether that
it's got very little to do with me. It's got very little to do with me. It's to do with you. I'm just there to poke you in the right direction. And I think in the terms of with regression, obviously it's much more two-way, whereas with what I do, I talk to you while you're in trance. You don't tend to engage. Whereas with regression, obviously I'm asking you where you are, what you can see, what's around you, and so it's much more of a two-way experience, whereas with hypnotherapy it's usually me doing the talking.
Yeah,
but yeah, something that I do, but it's not something, I don't know, I've had past life regression done on me, and I'm a skeptical believer in everything. I've got lots of spiritual beliefs, but I'm also very aware of the fact that whilst this could most definitely be past life, and the things that I've experienced, actually, I don't think my imagination is good enough to create. But I also know that when you're in trance, you're stimulating the areas of the brain where you would be in REM, in dreaming, where you would process deep rooted emotional issues, which is what you do in your REM time anyway. So during a past life regression, I don't think there's ever any guarantee it's a past life that you're connecting to, or another life, somebody else's life, the collective field with that information within it, but that it's deep processing of your emotional wounds. And so because I'm not 100% sure on my beliefs around that, it's not something I offer, but I will always explore it with someone that wants to explore it.
Yeah. And what about future life?
Yeah, we do. I've only ever done a couple of sessions where it's on people's progression into what they're creating into their future life.
Yeah,
that's more from how they imagine it rather than from it being shown to them.
Yeah.
You know,
so with the future life, what would you call it? Future life progression. Would that be the title?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that could be used around, like I have a journaling practice and it's a future self journal. So within that, I'm tapping into aspects of myself that I want to create in the future, like manifesting or, you know, that sort of creating thing, but also recognizing where I am now, then identifying with the future person. And there's like different things that the writing, the spelling is mapping my brain in creating this thing. So with what you do, then taking further into the subconscious, that could anchor in those things.
Massively, much quicker way of doing it. And this is the beauty of it, because it is usually the subconscious mind that stands in our way. And although the subconscious mind is there to protect you from threat or danger, it also only ever refers to previous patterns of behavior to ensure your survival. If what you did yesterday means you survived, your side of your brain encourages you to do it again. So maybe then it's difficult sometimes to break the habits or to break the blockages or whatever the It is restrictions that you're putting in your own way to achieve those things for your future self. It means that you can get all of your brain on board. So subconscious brain and conscious brain are both aiming for the same thing at the same time. And that's what you want. Otherwise, it's a continual conflict in there. The conscious brain knows it's going to stop smoking every Monday. It's going to stop eating cake every Monday. The conscious brain knows there's nothing to be frightened of about a work meeting or driving a car or going to school. The conscious brain knows that those things are okay. That's not the side of the brain that's in control when you've got any level of stress or any repetitive behaviors or whatever else. It's the subconscious that's in control. And when you've got them both coming from the same place, when the subconscious brain knows, Houston, there is not a problem, stand down. We don't need to worry about that anymore. We don't need to stress about that anymore. This is where we're going. When all parts of our brain are on board, we're unlocking. You're leveling up. You're leveling up in a big way.
Yeah. Because and the subconscious brain is the majority, isn't it? Like I was showing the example of like a mountaintop, and there's a tiny peak there, and it's all that's below the surface that we can't see. That's the subconscious. And that's what's got control over us.
It's running the show unless you have chosen unconsciously. And this is where it's really tricky, because you can eventually get to the place that hypnosis would get you consciously, but you are going the long way round, because you will have to hypnotize yourself effectively with continual movement of thought, continual practice of moving your thoughts away from what you don't want to what you do want. And although you need to do that, practice makes the process of hypnosis faster if you don't just rely on me once a week to do it for you and you do the work in the gaps. But you can get there on your own, but it's going to take you a really, really, really long time. Whereas that's where with hypnosis, it's like going through the back door. It's like sneaking it in, so that the conscious work is far less. And all of a sudden, I often find my clients don't notice the changes as they're happening. So they don't notice that shift in their thoughts and behaviors until after the event. So for example, someone who's been terrified of the dentist for years suddenly realizes they're in the waiting room and they haven't thought twice about it. And they're like, oh my God, Vic, I'm in the waiting room. And I'm like, yeah, I told you it'd sneak up on you. And someone will say, oh, they might have been frightened. One was of walking past groups of teenagers. And then they were like, oh, and I did this and I did that. And it was only after they walked past them, they realized they hadn't felt any anxiety. So it's almost as though the effects of it catch you by surprise sometimes. I call it my eureka moments. I would say it starts helping from the first session. It starts moving things really from the third session. I reckon 6, 7 session is what I call my eureka. So that's where it's in, and the real changes are taking place. And then people often, that was enough, or they continue then realizing that once they've solved the initial problem, how much further they can take themselves by harnessing the power of their own mind and knowing how it works. Why is no one taught how their brain works?
Oh man, yeah. Why are we not taught that?
Why are you not taught right from the very beginning? This is how your brain works. This is completely normal, and this is how you undo what your primitive brain is trying to do. If you're given a computer and you learn how to work it, you get more from it. If you know how to work all the apps on your smartphone, you get more from it. If you know how and why your brain is doing what it does, you'll get more from it. But we're not taught. It should be the first thing we're taught. The mental health issues would be so much smaller when people realize that, oh my God, I feel really anxious, or I panic, or this causes this, or this makes me feel like this. And I say to them, well, the reason that that's happening to you is your brain's doing this. And they're like, ah. And it stops people feeling, it makes people realize actually their brain's working exactly as it should. And they're not mentally ill, they're mentally well, but the wrong part of the brain's in charge. It is doing what it's supposed to do. It's not mental illness to be anxious or to be depressed, in terms of the fact your brain is working as it should do to protect you from perceived threat or danger. And it's about then recognizing how to undo that perceived threat of danger and how to rewire the brain to work.
Wow. Yeah. So, it would really be a different world, wouldn't it, right now? had we had
That's
that education.
There's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with you, you know? You're working as you should. It doesn't make you feel good. It's not how you want to be, but there's nothing wrong with you. And when people realise just that changes.
Yeah. And that brings back to me a conversation that we had a few weeks ago about, and we were talking about ADHD and ADD in a diagnosis in older women, and I know this is just a conversation, isn't it, between me and you? It's not, we're not professionals here, or you've got more, you're more clued up on the brain.
Yeah, I've got no qualifications, no research, literally nothing in this area other than something that's been recently brought to my awareness that I found quite fascinating to
yeah. I'd like to know more. I mean, are you at the point where you can talk about it, or?
Basically, I've only read a few articles and seen some really, really relatable memes, and done some self-exploration on the topic of, undiagnosed adult ADHD and how it presents in women and perimenopausal women in particular. And I've definitely found a lot of the information has resonated with me quite a lot about how differently ADHD presents itself than what people assume it presents itself.
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of
When you were describing it, I was like,
I know, like, that's
really?
what I've been researching it. So although I can't speak massively on it, I would say to anyone who's ever felt like maybe they don't fit in whatever context, and that they always should have been able to try harder, or have been more organized, or have motivated more, or have been misdiagnosed with bipolar or with PMDD or with any number of other things, to just go and have a look at some of the material of undiagnosed, particularly females, what I'm looking at, adult ADHD, and see what resonates for you, because it's been an eye-opener for me, and something I'm going to be exploring much more deeply, because
it's very interesting, and it's extra interesting to me that the conversation keeps coming up in lots of places around me now. You know, I'm meeting people who have, you know, that's been what a doctor has said that to them as an adult woman, perimenopausal, or my husband realizing he's on the autistic spectrum somewhere. I mean, that's not a diagnosis, and he's you know, I'm not saying anything he wouldn't want me to say, but he's realizing things about his childhood. Like, he's 53 now, and it's sort of like just things drop into place and make sense in a different way. And it's not about having the label, is it? It's about having some understanding, and when you are in that bracket of not fitting in, or, you know, not able to learn like other people learn, or recognizing your thoughts are not the same as like your peers and things, it's just good to know that it's a thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think, very much so, not about having the label, but I've been reading through this material and having some huge aha moments and thinking, things that, and I've done a lot of self-work, so I think I don't have a lot of insecurities or anxieties about myself anymore, but those are things I've had to work really hard not to have. And I think, when I look back now, a lot of where lack of self-worth or a lot of my issues would have come from could well have been actually mismanaged and undiagnosed ADHD, whereas I always thought I was different, I was failing. Why can't I just be organized like other people? Why can't I just do a to-do list and actually do what's on it? Why can't I sometimes make myself do things that I even want to do, but I can't actually gather the executive function to go away and do that? And all of a sudden I'm looking at these thinking, it's not personal failings, it's neurodivergency, and that's really different. It's really different. And I think I was able to recognize it in my children as well, is they're not the same as everybody else. They're, you know, we don't fit in. We find it really hard. All of us find it really hard to fit in to certain systems and ways of doing, because, you know, I mean, my son was forever told off for pen tapping and like that around the room, daydreaming. Can't focus for long enough to to do these things because he's busy thinking deep philosophical questions instead. It's just the way his brain works. So yeah, I would definitely say to anyone that is struggled with anything ever to just go and look at these different things. You know, traits from the spectrum, ADHD stuff, just different neurodivergent stuff. So just for that awareness for yourself of thinking, oh, perhaps.
It's like you were describing before when, you know, saying you're not broken. Like I used to think I was broken because I couldn't operate like other people. And although like you, I've done a lot of work on myself and things aren't as they were, when I think back to those traits and me as a 20-year-old or younger, it's like, you know, I would be ticking a lot more boxes. But and yeah, gosh, the gift to have known that at that time and how life could be different.
Yeah. And it's the same with the knowing how the brain works, I think. It's exploring these topics so you can get a greater understanding of yourself without it being, I think a lot of things almost are aimed as they were broken. There's something wrong with us that we need to fix. Even when it comes to a lot of shadow work, it's as though there's something wrong that needs to be fixed. And I think actually sometimes it's having an awareness and a learning and an accepting and a like, oh yeah, I just don't fit. That's fine. It's fine. There's not something wrong with me or broken about me that means I can't do this. This is just the way I'm built, and I can do stuff that other people can't do. I can do stuff that other people can't do. And they say that one of the traits I've apparently of ADHD is problem solving really quickly in situations where other people are frozen, and I'm really, really good at that. I've always been good at that. I don't panic in the moment. I might have the effects of adrenaline after, but and I can problem solve really quickly strange solutions sometimes that are quite out of the box, and apparently that is a potential trait as well.
Again, I really identify with that as you're saying it, because I will notice after some sort of thing where the problem solving has been happening and you've been the peacekeeper or you've been doing whatever it is that you do, after that I'm exhausted.
Yeah,
you know, after it's gone, I will be wiped out.
Yeah,
but
very much.
You'd think like the feelings that I get at the time would be more related to the when the event's happening, but afterwards, you know, wiped out emotion and things. It's sort of delayed responses. Very, very interesting. So what's your favourite thing about the brain? The brain's got to be your... Is the brain your passion?
Yeah, I guess. I'm massively interested in it. I think my passion more lies in just the helping people and how quickly I can do it and how easy it is, how painless it is. That's what my passion is. I'm interested in how it works. I always find it fascinating how the brain works, and obviously it's a field that's ever changing because of the technology is ever changing. So things we thought about the brain we're now finding actually aren't quite as we thought they were about the brain. So it's a field that you have to keep up with, because yeah, it's ever changing in what they're realizing with brain scans of what's lighting up when they thought it wouldn't be and what's not, and those sorts of things. I think the most interesting thing about the brain to me is that it can't tell the difference between imagination and reality. So if you do like 50 disastrous work meetings in your mind, your brain does not know that they weren't real, other than you went to one meeting and actually all of those things you negatively forecasted and dreaded that would happen, go wrong, that you would say, wouldn't say, and would be terribly awful. It was all fine, because these things usually are. But in your, as far as your brain's concerned, you genuinely have been to 50 disastrous meetings. Yeah, that I find amazing, that the brain can't tell the difference between imagination and reality. And like you were saying, when it comes to then creating your future and putting the law of attraction in action, if your brain can't tell the difference between imagination and reality, and you go through the subconscious brain that way to create those real visual images and those deep belief systems of this is coming for me, if your brain can't tell the difference between imagination and reality, and you create your own reality by your thoughts, then surely, yeah, you can project whatever you want out there with just a bit of training.
Wow. Gosh, yeah, I'm going to send you this journaling practice. It's not mine, it's somebody else, the holistic psychologist. But I'm really interested if like we could create something out of that with the hypnotherapy as well.
Yeah.
As a make things faster.
Yeah, just bring it on. Let's just bring it on now. I think there seems to be a huge energetic message, for want of a better word, of that at the moment, that now is the time to really put into practice everything we've learned. Like I know the stuff, I've learned the stuff of how to make our lives better, but now is the time to really bring together everything you've actually picked up along the way, all of the puzzle pieces, and begin to really put these things into practice in your own life. Which I'm a massive procrastinator, which is potentially an ADHD issue, which means that without a deadline or somebody saying, right, let's do this now, I won't. I need a deadline in the last minute. So tell me what you want done, tell me when to do it by, and it will be there for you. And I think that is the thing now. Now is the time for us all to begin to come together, to put our learnings together. I noticed that at our women's circle meeting, and I noticed it at Cherries as well with another group of people. It very much felt like pieces of the puzzle are coming together now, and that those of us who are meant to connect with the knowledge that we've got are meant to connect now, and are meant to be physically putting more of that knowledge into practice. And getting it out there. It's like we've accumulated these things for ourselves now. We've understood them, we've negotiated them, we've done the self-work with them, so that I don't think we're ever coming from a place of complete healing. I quite often find myself navigating situations that when I speak to my clients, they're navigating different situations, but similar themes. And I'm helping as I go a lot of the time. What I'm working out for myself, I'm incorporating. I don't come from a place of claiming fully healed, because I don't think we ever are. I think we're continually working. You can't be fully healed when there's more trauma coming at you every day from outside sources. It's difficult to maintain. We're always growing. So I think now's the time. It feels like now's the time we're supposed to be gathering together with each of the pieces of the puzzle and the healing that we have achieved, and bringing it together and putting it out there to create what we want.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing that right now. We're going to be on YouTube, baby.
Right now.
And your links will be below. I see them do that on YouTube. They point. I'll put all your links below for how people can contact you. Is the best place to get you through your website?
No, actually, to be perfectly honest, again, rubbish at technology. Most of my work comes from word of mouth, and so it's usually my email address or my Facebook page that people come through. Yeah,
and your Facebook page is?
It's Accesstherapy with Victoria Westwood.
Okay, great. Those links will be below. And so we've had lots of F words. So I'm kind of forming in this thing what you were just describing, of bringing what you've learned forward and taking it into an offering. I've got this thing forming called the F factor, because there's so many amazing F words. Like I work with frequencies. The channel's called Freedom Frequencies. We want freedom, and that word's always been there, even way before this. Freedom from all that stuff in your head. Freedom from pressures of the world, all these other freedom. So Freedom Frequencies, and we've got the F factor. So what would your favorite F word be?
It has to be the F word, I'm afraid. It really does have to be the F word, and I think there's probably words that are more appropriate and better, but that's my favorite. I love it.
How would you say it? How is the F word used for you? Because somebody used it the other day.
Yeah, it can be used in so many different ways, and that is the beauty of it. And whether it's fuck the system, or fuck it, or fuck yes, this is amazing, or fuck no, absolutely not. I use it a lot.
A few examples just rolled off the tongue.
Yeah, I use it a lot.
Brilliant. Yeah, it is used in many ways, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it can be used in a derogative way, or it can be used in an empowering way, and it can be used as often and wherever in a sentence you want to put
it. Fucking go.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Is there anything else?
I think you'll get that answer a lot on your interviews. I wonder how many of us will be in the Fuck It Club.
You're my third interview, and my first interview was fuck you. My second one, I forgot to ask, so I'll have to have them back and find out.
Yeah, definitely.
Forgot to ask, that's an F word. Don't like forgot. But yeah, I've got a page of F words. So that was really fun, and I really appreciate you taking time out to come and chat and trusting me as well, and to go live on the old YouTube, and it'll be shared.
Just think about that part.
Yeah, no, I don't think about that part, to be honest. That's where forget comes in. Forget you did a video, forget it went live.
Yeah, fuck it.
I've really enjoyed it. So
yeah, me too, anytime. And definitely send me that information over, and we'll collaborate.
It could be, yeah, it could be really exciting. I love because the future self, that's where we want to go, isn't it? So like, if your future self was to come now, what's she saying to you? What's he saying to you? Where are you going? Instead of always connecting with the past, which has been a pattern, is a pattern, isn't it?
Especially if there's feelings of being stuck. And so just to reach forward. So yeah, I definitely would like to do some work on that. Really intriguing.
Brilliant, exciting. All right, thank you very much, my dear. Lots of love.
Thank you. Mwah. Speak soon. Bye.